And thank you for Great Blackness for pointing out the fact that I was on air live and I didn't even have my audio on, which is completely unacceptable. And it's something about my mechanisms that, I tend to keep doing that. And I got to figure this out because it wastes a lot of time, both for me. Imagine you think you're spitting for like 10 minutes and you're not actually doing anything. So that's where I was. So I'm going to have to humble myself and come back because I feel like I built a good myth lab. And that's what matters to me is like, did I build a good myth lab? And I guess it's easy. I could just do this. And then I'm hearing my sound. So like that's my fault. And I apologize to you guys as someone who's trying to make something good for my audience and giving you guys a reason to come back. And I gotta be accountable for that. I gotta own that one, right? I gotta man up and own it the way that it should be. So I'm doing that, right? I'm humbling myself, saying I made a mistake. But man, let's get right back into this myth lab, right? So this myth lab, which I almost forgot what I was talking about, and I'm glad I didn't because this is a good one, right? We're talking about lightning, but I didn't want to go with the traditional lightning gods because that's typically about force and storm. I wanted to talk about some lesser, well-known lightning deities to kind of get into lightning itself not being one expression of force. Lightning is also not always about just destruction, right? We think about it as destruction, and sometimes we think about it as bringing Frankenstein monsters back to life. I guess that's a form of transformation there. But this is lightning in the way that we're going to look at it. We're going to look at it from three different deities. We're going to start with Oya, right, who is lightning at the gates of death and rebirth. Maybe that goes along with some Frankenstein. He used electricity too. So we're going to talk about it in that regard. We're going to talk about Chalk, who's directly above me, who comes from Mesoamerican belief systems. And his lightning actually feeds crops and civilization. So his lightning is by far already not a bad thing. His lightning is already like, okay, yeah, this is all positive, and it means that we get to live and eat food. And then this is Raygen, who lightning at sound, vibration, and like cosmic repercussion. And I'm pretty sure this is the Raiden or Raid because he's known as Raiden. I'm sure this is the same Raiden which they co-opted from or for the Mortal Kombat movies. Which why doesn't he look like that? I clearly don't understand. But whatever. Okay. So this discussion is not about which one of these deities is stronger. That's not even what we're looking for. I'm just looking more at what lightning represents in multiple belief systems, right? Because we're seeing it in a couple of belief systems. So what does this lightning actually mean? What does it actually represent? So let's get into it and let's figure out what this lightning actually means, okay? So for these cultures specifically that we're talking about, I'm going to say right off the bat that it's about power, but not necessarily about power. Like not necessarily I'm tripping and you need to bow down in power, but more of like power to change the world around you, right? So of these three, I think they're all very much community aligned deities. These are all deities who care, right? You get a lot of lightning deities, and sometimes, I don't really care about what happens to you guys. I just work here as the lightning god for this pantheon. I think all these gods here are aligned for the right reasons. I think they actually care about us. I think they use their abilities to care about and help us. So this is not about ego. This is about them making some changes. Like we know lightning splits the sky, lightning starts fires, lightning also brings rain, and lightning announces when there's a shift. Like this is an important thing. Lightning sets a tone that's kind of undeniable. Like you hear the crack of it, and there's a reason that thunder is really never separated from lightning, which makes me think of thunder from the Black Lightning series. We never really separate thunder from lightning, although they're very different in what they do. Thunder is always like this warning, right? So let's get into it. And like I said before, like the first one I'm going to talk about here is Oya, because actually Oya is my favorite. The other two are virtual new jacks to me. Oya is my OG here, okay? So let's talk about Oya. And there's nothing I love better than knowing everybody's nicknames. That tells us a lot about who you are. Magic Johnson told me a lot about who he was coming right out of the gate, right? So Oya, right? So we know her as Oya, but she's also known as Oya of Nine. That's going to be important. Also known as the mother of 9 heavens. She is also the queen of cemetery gates. She is the lady of the whirlwind. She is the Orisha of the Niger River, and she is the guardian of the marketplace, in addition to being she who brings change. Now, I personally love Mother of 9 Heavens, not just because this is 9 World Chronicles, but because this is 9 World Chronicles. And we talk about 9, and 9 is always seen in importance. 9 matters. I don't know if you guys realize this, but I wasn't just randomly pulling a number out. Like, I would not have called this 8 World Chronicles or 4 World Chronicles. I wouldn't. 4 year doesn't really sound that bad, and neither is 8. But they don't have the significance that 9 does. It's very different, right? And traditions associate her with 9 even more and more. 9 is connected to her children. It is said, or in some traditions, said that she bore 9 children, and she commands 9 storm spirits. So in their belief system, 9 represents multiplicity for one, and you can see that in her children. And the spirits, I believe, are all amplifiers of her power. So you can see the multiplicity, that 9 is a good number for if they at least associate it with family. But the other component of it is that 9 represents completion. And this is what I've always worked with. This is what my belief about the number 9 has always been, because it's 9 before you make it's the last one of every set. 9's the last. So you have completed this set of the integral numbers, right? 1 through 9. And then you're setting 1 kind of is repeating with its placeholder being the 0. How you get to 10. And then you'll get to 19, and that will occur again. You get to 99, and it occurs again. So 9, and it does represent completion. That's how they're using it, right? That's why I'm using it. That's a universal concept about 9. And so we see that reflected in her. Now, if we talk about where she comes from, because this is very important about defining her identity, how she was seeing the world, all that stuff. So she comes out of Yoruba, belief system, like the people who are present day living in Nigeria and Benin, right? This is where she originates from. So that places her in pre-colonial West Africa. Very important. Now, the way that Oya was most often spread was through oral tradition, the telling of stories, like literally what I'm doing right now. This is literally oral tradition. I am engaging in oral tradition, which is a history of these people where she originates from. Now, I also took notes, so I don't know if that violates that. So I do have my notes written down, so you can go back and find my notes. But I am passing this along to you guys in oral tradition. This is a long tested standard for educating people about a topic. Just start talking about it, right? I start talking. Some of you guys listen, right? Some of you guys come back and listen more, right? So that's oral tradition. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the bee's knees, right? Like, that's what I believe. We spread knowledge. This is also about, but oral tradition also, because she still survives, right? So this is pre-Columbian when she starts. She's still in existence right now, and I'm going to talk about that. And that's particularly a challenge in a post-colonial world or a colonial world, oral tradition surviving, because it makes it increasingly more difficult, because a lot of times colonial structures control how information spreads. So things aren't written down. If it wasn't chiseled into a rock, it's going to get burnt up. It's going to get destroyed. You're probably going to be killed for talking about it. So I'm not going to get into that part, but that's what we look at when we hear about a deity from West Africa who's surviving today, who primarily was oral tradition, right? But oral tradition is stronger right now. I just kind of proved it, that I'm sitting here doing oral tradition for you guys right now. I'm giving you guys oral. In the nice way, right? In the group chat, like, let's talk about stuff like. But Oya herself is part of a faith system that mythically is not dead in any sense. Like, actually, this is a system with a well-developed and very deep cosmology built around these Orishas and what the Oludumare at the top of it. right? So this is a well-developed belief system that has great structure in the Candomblé belief system that we see still thriving in Brazil. But we know Brazil ended up with a lot of people from the continent of Africa during that terrible incident known as transatlantic slave trade. So they have a huge populace of people whose lineage comes from there, and it's reinforced over the years. She also exists in Santeria, which you would see in Cuba, right? Strong belief system there. We see them practice their roots. I would also say she's also heavily connected in Haitian voodoo, which can be in a lot of areas. And in Haitian voodoo, she was important, obviously, for the revolt, like the revolution. She was about change. Wind is about change. Lightning is about change. So she would have been strong in that. So geographically, she's got a huge area. Like her bag traveled. Her bag traveled. Her gift in her bag traveled like she was Steph Curry, right? Her bag was mobile because she had strong worship in Africa, and I believe it still resonates there despite the colonization and the infusion of other religions. And she's still active in the Caribbean, in Haiti right now. I don't mean like in the last couple of years. I mean today. I mean, like, I would stand on business. Somebody's probably making an offering to her today. Like, somebody probably, as of today, I don't know what time it is where you guys are, but as of today, it's 1:39 here. I bet somebody within that geographic region has made some offering to her, right? So from the diasporic standpoint, she's huge, right? She's huge. Again, I know Zeus got a deep bag. I know Zeus bags travel, but is somebody worshiping Zeus right now at this very moment? I don't know. I know a lot about Zeus, and it probably comes from like Clash of the Titans and some Marvel movies. I've never sat down and said I'm going to worship Zeus or make an offering to him. Is someone doing that? Potentially. I don't know. I feel very confident saying that about Oya, that she's active. She's alive and direct. If you want to know about a deity who still got juice, Oya still got juice, right? She's still getting. I may make an offering to her later on today. You never know, right? Because who wouldn't want Oya on your side? I'd rather have her on my side than against my side, right? They'll be perfect things. So we also want to talk about her is who she's also connected with. And she's a lot of times connected as the wife of Shango, right? She was the wife of the deity Shango, who is said to be the Thunder King. So Oya gets to be known as the Storm Wind. Now, this is a huge significance. Shango throws lightning. Oya controls the storm winds that carry it, right? So he's throwing it out there, and she's taking it and directing it with the winds, right? And she is not a subordinate energy to him. She never has been. I don't know if you're looking at her, if she seems like she'd be a subordinate energy, but trust me, she's not. And don't talk to her like that, because she'll tell you about yourself, right? She's movement itself. And so her component in the world, in the whole mythology, is extremely significant just in that regard. Okay. Now, previous to that, it's also said that she was married to Shango. Now, Shango himself is associated with iron, fire, and storm. So she goes through a shank. Or, excuse me, he's iron, he's war, he's technology. So he is different. And I think some of the I think there's some weaponry that he makes that is tied to her, but I'm going to have to look that up because I'm going to talk a little bit about her weapons as well, right? So you can see who she's been associated with, at least in that romantic or consort role. So her weapons, okay, we know about her weapons. We know about the horsehair, whisk that she would carry, that she would whip, and then had lightning in that, an amazing weapon. I think I talk about that when I can do some profiles on weapons, or if I haven't, I should. She carries a machete. She's also known for her color. She wears purple, like that's it. She claimed purple before that other guy with the symbol did. And she's also associated with winds, buffalo imagery. And the buffalo matters because she is said to transform into a buffalo. That is kind of like her spirit animal, and she will totally get at it in the form of a buffalo, right? So that's an important aspect of who she is. Okay, she's symbolized by the buffalo in that she is the power of wild force. She's not soft energy. Okay, never been soft energy. Nothing soft about this girl, this lady. And she also has dominion over death, right? So this is where she gets to become unique because she guards over cemeteries. She controls the wind that carry the dead into the spirit realm. Again, says she controls the wind. That's one of her main things. She is not death itself. That's important. She's simply the passage. That's what Oya represents, is the passage from the living world into the world of the dead, right? So she's not like Baron Samedi, who rules death, or Ma, who embodies death. She simply governs the crossing that exists. So I would almost say in that role, she's kind of more Anpu, or I'm trying to think of his other name, Anpu, or oh man, Anubis, right? I'm sorry, it took me a little while to get there. As that symbolically being the one who helps guide you down the road. And symbolically now, in stories about her, she's typically known for bringing tornadoes, reshaping landscapes. She actually defeats Shango in battle, which I didn't know about that. She sacrifices herself at times in some traditions. She transforms. And in stories, she's typically described as being very fierce, very jealous. So don't get it twisted, fellers. And she's also very protective of her people. That's kind of her connection to the community, is that she's very protective of her people, and she's also very strong and independent. She is not your typical demure divine femininity. She is weather, and that carries a lot of X factors with it when you're weather, right? That means a lot. I mean, that says a lot about how you're going to get out. Now, if we go back and we look at her timeline, she is prior to the 15th century. She gets started in oral Yoruba cosmology. By the 16th through the 19th century, now she is of diasporic transmission. So she's being spread about because of the diaspora, because of, that thing that was going on, right, during the Atlantic, right? We're all aware of that. And then she gets synchronized with the Catholic saints. At that point, that kind of locks her in for her prevalence going forward in modern times, because she's locked into the belief system that's dominant in that area, and she's part of it, right? She's part of the Catholic system because she got synchronized, and that's how people were able to still keep her praise and worship active, right? And then she becomes a part of this renewal as people have gotten renewed faith in the Yoruba traditions. They're carrying, of course, her part of it. She's a huge part of the Yoruba cosmology. So you're not going to be able to have good conversations about that belief system and not talk about her. So that means she's back, baby. That means that after all these years, she's still back. She's live. She's direct. And we'll see how these other deities hold up in comparison.